All right, jumping over here. Star Trek news, right? Because we all love who doesn't love Star Trek, right? Everyone loves Star Trek. We're all waiting to know what's going to happen on this one. And Simon Pegg offers up a little bit on Star Trek 4, as well as Tarantino's Trek, which has been rumored to be Star Trek 4, by the way. I think Paramount was maybe kind of going either way, to be honest with you. But he says that Tarantino's Trek is likely 6 years away. On the subject of Star Trek 4, it says here, the fate of Star Trek 4 was up in the air for a while. Even cast members didn't seem to have any idea with what was going on. Then in April of this year, we got a real update. S.J. Clarkson has been hired to helm the film, making her the first female director. Now, we don't know what the plot of it is, but the rumor has it that Trek 4 will feature the previously mentioned idea of having Chris Pine's Captain Kirk reunite with his dead father, played by Chris Hemsworth, via some form of time travel. Saying here, it's really an amazing story. Abrams said back in 2016, it's really the reason we made the deal with Chris Hemsworth as soon as we could, because we really want it to be told, so fingers crossed. And I remember that too, but right before the release of Star Trek Beyond 2 years ago, they basically said Star Trek 4 is coming. And I don't know if they said that because they wanted to push the story or if they wanted to try to build enough hype to bring in Trekkies to the theater opening weekend, knowing that they were going to be able to see the next iteration down the road, right? And I really think that's a trick that they use. I do feel like that's a trick that these particular people will use, because it sets it in stone in the back of your mind and your subconscious that you're going to be able to see this again. And people like that. They don't like it when stuff gets taken away from them without ever getting a conclusion. So this kind of tricks them a little bit, and it's been 2 years, and it's still going to be like another 2 years before we even probably see Star Trek 4. Now, Simon Pegg did offer up a brief update on the franchise, saying here that he talked with S.J. Clarkson and says, I've met with S.J. and she's fizzing with ideas and she has the right attitude. She's reverent, but she's not slavish. In terms of story, I have a vague knowledge, but it's nothing I can talk about. Now, I don't know if he's going to be writing the script. Simon Pegg did co-write the screenplay for Star Trek Beyond. And that was actually one of the key parts people really seemed to respond to, was that. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing here. But at least we know, and I like what the article says, at least we know that Clarkson is approaching the film with a reverence for the material while also not getting too bogged down in fan service. And then Pegg says the film will start production in early 2019, which means we won't even see it till like early, mid 2019, which is, 3 years, which makes sense given the fact that Star Trek 2009, Star Trek Into Darkness 2013, 3 years later for Star Trek Beyond. It just, they're going to probably want to release it. Well, no, they're not going to release it on the 10th anniversary. So that does make something. But anyway, he also talks a bit here about Quentin Tarantino Star Trek. Now, the R-rated Star Trek, whatever the hell is going on with this, is still up in the air. Now, it says here that before official word on Star Trek 4 broke, a very strange Trek-related story surfaced. Quentin Tarantino was going to make a Star Trek film. Tarantino pitched the idea to J.J. Abrams, who loved the idea so much, he got Tarantino a meeting at Paramount. From there, a writer's room was assembled to help make Tarantino's idea a reality. To even make this weirder, Tarantino plans to make the film R-rated. Well, that's not even making it weirder, that's Tarantino. If Tarantino's name was attached to, like, SpongeBob SquarePants, I would fully expect that particular project to be full of nothing but F-bombs and the N-word. You'd just be constantly calling that to Patrick. That's what I think would happen. Pegg also says that the film is still happening, but just not yet. Pegg also confirmed that Tarantino wants to use the same current cast of the film franchise, saying Tarantino came into Bad Robot and pitched it, and it's been put on the bank. I think he had it in mind, or he had us in mind when he came up with the idea. He likes the new cast. As far as I know, it is the same cast. Pegg also added that since Tarantino is busy working on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, production on his Trek film won't kick off for a few years, and that might lead to a new cast being brought in. He says here, I can't see him doing it for 5 or 6 years, by which time we might be too old anyway. By that, I'd sit there and argue, no, probably not, considering the fact that, considering the fact that, Star Trek 6, was it 1990? I want to say 96 for Star Trek 6 or something like that. And they were all old, right? Star Trek Generations still had people, they were all in that. Like most of them were in that. They were old, they could still do this. It'd still be fine. We know Simon Pegg can still do action. Him being the eldest person on set, I would believe. What would they do without Anton Yelchin? Unfortunately, that's still going to be something that's sadder than hell. I still feel bad every time I think about that. But here's the thing. Tarantino, I don't quite understand why Tarantino would need a writer's room for this to get it off the ground. Tarantino writes everything himself, so I don't see why or how this would be a thing. I just don't get it personally. But that being said, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this. I'm very curious to see how things are going to go down. And you know what? Hey, Star Trek 4, if it's not going to get too bogged down in fan service, which is kind of what happened with Into Darkness, and then, you know, obviously Star Trek Beyond felt more like an episode of the TV series. Who knows where this is going to go, but I do hope they keep in line with more Beyond and less Into Darkness, even though I did quite enjoy that movie too. Now,